You wake up, which is impressive, considering you're sleeping on what can only be described as a haystack that lost a fight with a wet goat. The sun hasn't even bothered to rise yet. It's somewhere out there behind the clouds and centuries of regret. Your bed smells like a combination of mildew, body odor, and betrayal. You sit up, slowly, because your neck is at a 45-degree angle from the night before, thanks to the straw poking into your spine like nature's version of a chiropractor who hates you. You look around your small medieval cottage. It's dark, damp, charming in the way a root cellar full of spiders is charming. There's a draft. There's always a draft. It's like the house is haunted by the spirit of someone who died of pneumonia and now wants you to join them. You shuffle over to the little cracked mirror nailed to the wall. It's slightly warped, which is fine, because so are you. You peer into it, and that's when you notice it. A thinning patch. Top of your head. Right where your dignity used to live. Baldness. The cruelest inheritance from your father. He also gave you a rake, a half-broken stool, and something called curse knees. Before we go any further into this harrowing tale of 14th century follicular despair, take a moment, yes, right now, to like this video and subscribe if you're into weird history, dry sarcasm, and relaxing nightmares from the past. It helps a lot. And I love reading your comments, especially when you tell me what time it is for you and where you're watching from. It's weirdly soothing to know someone is dozing off to medieval medical malpractice in Iceland at 3 a.m. Now, back to your scalp. There's no Rogaine, no hair transplants, no laser clinic staffed by overly enthusiastic estheticians named Kyle. There's just you, a balding head, and a medieval world full of things that absolutely should not be applied to human skin, but will be anyway. Because science? No. Because Gerald down the lane swears it worked for his cousin's neighbor's uncle who allegedly regrew his hair after rubbing sheep dung and river moss on his head under a full moon. You panic. Quietly. As quietly as you can while contemplating rubbing dung on your scalp. Which, back then, is basically called a Tuesday. In this brave new world of 1200 AD, give or take a few wars and a plague, baldness is not just an aesthetic inconvenience. It is a spiritual crisis. You see, your hair isn't just hair. It's a reflection of your virility, your social standing, your inner balance of humors. According to the medical intelligentsia of a time, which means old men with ink-stained robes and zero practical experience, hair falls out when your internal bile ratio becomes disrespectful. Too much hot. Not enough wet. Or maybe the moon insulted your scalp last Tuesday. Could go either way. So you do what any reasonable medieval peasant would do, you go to the local doctor. He's not really a doctor. He's a barber. Or an herbalist. Or just the only guy in the village who owns a knife and a book. He looks at your scalp, grunts knowingly, because making noises is 80% of his medical technique, and starts listing remedies. Fasten your woolen breeches, because this is where it gets stupid. First up, bear grease. That's right. Fat, scraped from the armpits of an actual bear. Not only is it hard to get, but applying it involves smearing it on your scalp like you're buttering a loaf of despair. It's supposed to nourish the roots, which is ironic, because by the time you get enough bear grease, your roots will be buried 6 feet under after the bear kills you. If bears aren't your thing, don't worry. There's also goose dung. Fresh, of course. Rubbed in vigorously. Left to ferment on your head. No, I'm not making this up. This was considered a stimulating tonic. Stimulating in the way a divorce or mild electrocution is stimulating. And let's not forget the ever-popular urine rinses. Yours or someone else's. Preferably a healthy child's. Preferably first thing in the morning. You're supposed to collect it, warm it, not boil, not chill, just slightly uncomfortable, and then massage it into your scalp while praying to a saint whose name you can't pronounce. The logic here is unclear. Maybe it was the nitrogen. Maybe it was just peer pressure. Either way, congratulations. You now smell like the worst science experiment in history. If you were rich, and let's be clear, you are not, you might afford more sophisticated concoctions. Like powdered viper mixed with vinegar and saffron. Very luxurious. Very spicy. Very likely to cause hallucinations and a rash that requires its own parish priest. And if you're especially desperate, you might venture into the world of bloodletting. Because in medieval logic, every problem could be solved by bleeding it out. Depression? Bloodletting. Headache? Bloodletting. You lost a toe to frostbite? Bloodletting? Balding? Well, obviously, your scalp is too full of evil vapors. Let's release them by stabbing your temples with a small knife until you see angels. You let the barber bleed you. You don't pass out, but you wish you had. He then offers a salve made from burnt hedgehog, rosemary, and spirit of wine, which, tragically, is not wine. It's alcohol made from wine that now tastes like sadness and soot. He rubs it in. It burns. This is apparently a good sign. And the best part? None of this works. But everyone pretends it might. Because admitting it doesn't work would mean admitting we're all slowly disintegrating in a world without central heating, antibiotics, or consistent hygiene. And that's just too depressing. So instead, we dabble in garlic poultices. We chant over nettle paste. We rub raw onions into open wounds and call it progress. Now let's take a moment to appreciate the irony of medieval baldness solutions. Most of them involve increasing blood flow to the scalp by slapping it, stabbing it, burning it, or gluing animal fat to it. But the real tragedy is this: they didn't actually understand why hair fell out. Hormones? Genetics? Vitamin deficiencies? All foreign concepts. They barely believed in germs. What they did believe in was bad air and punishment from God. So yes, your bald spot is clearly divine retribution. For what, you ask? Who knows? Maybe you swore at a bishop. Maybe you looked at a nun too long. Maybe your grandfather stole a goose in 1096. The point is, the gods, or the saints, or the moon, are displeased. And now your scalp is ground zero. Still, you persevere. Because you have hope. And because Gerald swears that the boiled frog eyeballs he used last month are definitely why he has 3 new hairs on his left temple. It's hard to say if he's lying, hallucinating, or just as mold growing out of his face. But in a world where everything smells like cheese gone rogue, you learn not to ask too many questions. You walk home, head reeking of ash and goat fat. The villagers stare. One child cries. Your dog doesn't recognize you. That's fine. You lie down on your hay bale. The same one from before, only now slightly more aromatic, thanks to your scalp's new treatment. You close your eyes. You try to sleep. But you keep wondering, maybe tomorrow you'll try leeches. Or maybe just accept the baldness. Embrace the shine. Become a monk. They shave their heads on purpose. Either way, tomorrow is another day in the grand saga of medieval follicular failure. And you, my friend, are bravely leading the charge. Sleep well, if you can. You wake up again. Which, frankly, feels like a mistake. Because your pillow, and we're using that word loosely, now smells even more intensely like wet animal and stale garlic. It's still dark, because time is a joke in the Middle Ages. The rooster hasn't crowed yet, possibly because he saw your head and fainted. You rub your eyes. Your fingers brush your scalp, and, oh no, the smell of last night's cure has ripened overnight. A pungent blend of bear grease, vinegar, and something you suspect might be decomposing nettles. You try not to gag. That would waste energy. Energy you need for more disappointment. You sit up slowly. Your joints pop like you're made of poorly cured wood. Your knees ache like they've just been betrayed by a close friend. You shuffle over to the mirror again, warped, cracked, emotionally damaging. And there it is, the same bald spot, laughing at you in the morning sun. Has it grown? Maybe. Or maybe you're just seeing it more clearly now that you've lost the will to hope. Still, you're not giving up. You're not a quitter. You're a medieval person, which means you have centuries of misguided optimism and peer pressure baked into your soul. So you pull on your scratchy wool tunic, step into your wooden sole shoes, ideal for developing foot-related trauma, and head out to see if the apothecary is in. Now, apothecary is a fancy word for guy with shelves full of mysterious powders, dried animal bits, and jars of questionable fluid. He smells like licorice and mildew. His shop smells like burnt thyme, goat skin, and regret. You step inside, ducking under bundles of herbs that look like someone murdered a garden and hung the evidence from a ceiling. He greets you with a grunt, standard, and asks what you need. You explain your situation. He nods thoughtfully, as if he's about to summon divine wisdom, and then reaches under the counter to produce a jar labeled simply, Badger Salve. It's thick. It's green. It jiggles in a way that's legally disturbing. He tells you to apply it once daily for 3 weeks. No washing. Just rub it in and let nature do its work. You want to ask what's in the salve, but you know the answer will be upsetting. It's always upsetting. And for those watching this while drifting off to sleep, let me remind you, medieval medicine is not a science. It's more of a chaotic gamble between superstition and digestive ruin. Most recipes were passed down orally, written in illegible Latin, or carved into wood by monks who were fasting and hallucinating from lack of salt. Now, while you wait for your badger salve to do its work, you try something else. You visit the local monastery. Not for prayer, necessarily, but because monks were often the most educated people in the village. Also, they brewed beer, which improves every conversation. The monk in charge of natural remedies, Brother Elric, aged 43, looks 94, takes one look at your scalp and nods solemnly. He has seen this before. Many times. He calls it calvitium malevolentia, baldness of malevolent origin. You ask if he means spiritual malevolence. He says yes. You ask if that's a medical diagnosis. He just stares at you and offers you a boiled root. It's brown. It smells like bitterness. It tastes like burn socks. You chew it anyway. Because you, like many before you, are desperate. Brother Elric also recommends a scalp blessing. This involves lighting 3 candles, reciting verses from Psalms, and having another monk gently slap the top of your head with a bundle of rosemary and duck feathers. You're not entirely sure if this is holy, medical, or a prank. But you let it happen. Because you've accepted that dignity is a luxury you can no longer afford. Let's pause here to remember, this is a world without mirrors that work, without dermatologists, without shampoo. Most people only bathe when it rains and the shame gets too strong. Hygiene? Optional. Eyelashes? Frequently infested. Scalp care? Best case scenario, you don't have lice. Worst case? Your scalp is home to a thriving community of insects with social hierarchies and economic policies. But still, there's hope. Because now you've heard rumors of a foreign remedy. That's right. Imported. Exotic. From the distant and mysterious land of Italy. You managed to trade a chicken, your best one, the one that didn't peck you that time, for a scrap of parchment that claims to contain an Italian cure for baldness. It's written in a mixture of Latin and increasingly frantic herbal symbols. The main ingredients appear to be crushed rose petals, nice. Snake oil, concerning. Vinegar, standard. Powdered ivory, deeply illegal, but somehow more common than clean water. And boiled horse urine. Ah yes, we've returned to urine. A staple of medieval medical science. As reliable as disappointment. This particular recipe calls for all ingredients to be mixed during a waning moon, left to sit in a copper pot buried in a compost heap for 3 days, then applied while chanting something that sounds vaguely demonic. You're unsure whether this is medicine or an accidental satanic ritual, but again, it might work, so naturally, you do it. Now, for the lucky few, the nobles, the clerics, the wealthy merchants, there was one more option. A cosmetic solution. Wigs. That's right. Early versions of wigs existed in medieval Europe. They were rare, often expensive, and almost exclusively used by people trying to hide diseases or age. These wigs were made of human hair, horsehair, or, if you were especially unlucky, coarse wool dyed with substances that cause skin rashes and existential dread. Wearing one was like strapping a sweaty animal to your skull. They didn't breathe. They didn't fit. They didn't match your head shape. But for a nobleman trying to impress a visiting bishop or seduce a local duchess, it was worth it. Of course, for you, a lowly peasant with a goat-related side hustle, a wig is out of reach. You once tried to make one from leftover yarn and fairy tales. It did not go well. Your neighbors still call you the hairless sinner. Let's now revisit one of the most consistent beliefs about hair in the Middle Ages. Hair reflects the balance of the 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Yes, bile came in colors. Yes, people believed this was the foundation of medicine. And yes, almost every medical problem, from stubbed toes to heartbreak, was attributed to one of these bodily fluids misbehaving like a drunk uncle at a wedding. According to this philosophy, if your hair was falling out, your internal temperature was probably too hot and dry. The treatment? Cool and moist foods, like cucumbers, and fish, and soggy bread soaked in almond milk. And no, it didn't help. But it did give people something to chew while their hair continued its slow betrayal. And let's not forget astrology. Because of course astrology was involved. Many medieval doctors refused to treat baldness unless the stars were in the right alignment. Some even believed your hair loss was tied to Mars being in retrograde or Saturn having a bad attitude. You could be denied treatment for weeks simply because Jupiter wasn't feeling cooperative. So now you're keeping a scalp diary, noting the moon phases, the herbs you used, the dreams you had, the number of crows seen circling your cottage. All of this in hopes that something, anything, might encourage one stubborn follicle to come back home. But nothing works. The bald spot remains. It's like a cruel little desert island in the middle of your scalp, mocking you. A reminder that no matter how many times you rub snail mucus or chant incantations into a turnip, some things just cannot be reversed. And slowly, gently, you begin to accept it. Not because you're okay with it, but because you're tired and itchy, and because your pillow is now permanently stained with so many questionable substances that it has developed its own microbiome. You lie back down. Your scalp tingles, but not in a good way. You close your eyes. You wonder what fresh nonsense tomorrow will bring. Maybe someone will invent a powdered squirrel bladder tonic. Maybe someone will swear by rubbing honeybees directly into your temples. Maybe you'll try to become a hermit in the woods where no one can see your shame. But for now, you rest. Because your scalp needs it. And so does your soul. Sleep tight. And don't let the rosemary duck bundle hit you on the way out. You wake up. Again. You'd hope to wake up with a lush mane cascading over your shoulders like the tapestry heroes. Instead, your head still feels like the back end of a plucked chicken. You've got one rogue hair growing at a strange angle, like it's trying to escape your scalp before it's dragged into another experiment. You sit up slowly. Something crusted onto your cheek in the night. It might be yesterday's badger salve, or possibly a small amphibian. You're too tired to care. The pillow is now more potion than fabric, and your blanket smells vaguely of smoked eel. Congratulations. You're 3 weeks into your scalp restoration journey. You've applied every unholy mixture, from Brother Elric's sacred root stew to imported Italian snake vinaigrette. Your scalp is red. It burns when the wind touches it. A fly just landed on your head, paused, and flew away like it knew something you didn't. And now? Now it's time to escalate. You're going to the barber surgeon. Let's pause for a moment and explain that, in the medieval world, the barber wasn't just the guy who trimmed your bowl cut. No, he was also the town's minor surgeon, amateur dentist, bone cracker, abscess lancer, bloodletter, and part-time psychologist with zero training and a disturbing enthusiasm for knives. You arrive at his stall just after dawn. The place smells like iron, sweat, and disappointment. A dried pig's foot hangs from the rafters, probably ceremonial, possibly lunch. He's sharpening a blade as you enter, whistling a tune called something like "The Wound Won't Close, But God is Merciful." You explain your condition. He squints at your scalp like it's a map of a cursed forest. Then, without hesitation, he tells you the only way to truly cure baldness is, wait for it, bloodletting. Yes, bloodletting. The one-size-fits-all medieval solution for everything from headaches to demonic possession. The theory is simple. You're too full of bad blood. Your humors are off. You need to leak a little to make room for new, healthy hair energy. It's medical feng shui, except with leeches and crying. You sit in the barber's chair, which is not a chair so much as a tilted wooden crate with a faint aroma of fermented ham. He ties a stained cloth around your arm and pulls out a leech. It's thick, wiggly, and appears to be looking at you with intent. He slaps it onto your inner elbow with the casual air of someone who has done this before, possibly too often. It sticks immediately. You do not scream. You merely vibrate in silent horror. Then he produces a small iron spike for the controlled bleeding. Controlled, in this case, meaning he will poke you until you reconsider every decision that led you here. As the blood flows, slowly, reluctantly, like a medieval tax refund, the barber tells you about other bald clients he's helped. One was a knight who lost his hair after a siege. One was a nun who claimed divine punishment. One was a pig farmer whose solution was just wearing the pig. You nod politely, trying not to pass out. Eventually, the leech gorges itself and drops off your arm like a tick that found religion. The barber places it lovingly in a jar labeled employees. Then he rubs a mixture of salt, goose fat, and blessed sand onto your scalp. It burns. Not metaphorically. Literally. You smell hair that doesn't exist catching fire. Now, let's take a little detour while you recover from that session of medieval misfortune. Let's talk about folk remedies. That charming category of peasant traditions passed down from generation to generation by people who genuinely meant well, but also thought comets were sky omens and that left-handedness was a curse. Somewhere, deep in the countryside, a woman named Mags is crushing beetles with a wooden spoon. She's not a witch, per se. She's a wise woman, an herbalist, a midwife, a local expert on skin fungus and toad staring. She smells like mugwort and pipe smoke. You find her by following the scent of boiled cabbage and stories told in frightened whispers. Mags examines your scalp and, after a long pause, declares that it's spirit-bound. You don't know what that means. You don't ask. Instead, you watch as she mixes up a concoction that includes burnt barley flour, crushed acorns, an entire egg, shell and all, spit from a fasting dog, 3 drops of chicken blood, which she extracts mid-squawk. She tells you to apply it under a waxing moon, facing east, while humming a tune about fertile wheat. This is medicine. Sort of. You nod solemnly, thank her, and back away slowly. That night, you smear the gloop onto your already blistered scalp. It congeals instantly. You lie on your back, staring at the thatched ceiling, wondering if this is penance for something you did in a past life. Maybe you were a Viking who burned libraries. Maybe you insulted a saint's haircut. Who knows? Let's take a moment to explore another popular theory, friction. That's right. Some healers believed hair fell out because the scalp was too lazy. It needed stimulation. Not nutrients. Not rest. Just more attention. So men were encouraged to rub their scalps vigorously every morning. With cloth. With sticks. With a hedgehog, if one could be borrowed. One 13th century manuscript even recommends scraping the scalp gently with a sharpened seashell. Not to injure, mind you. Just to encourage the follicles. Like a motivational speech, but with bleeding. There were even medieval head hammers, small wooden mallets designed to thump the scalp gently, like a door knock for hair. The theory? Wake the roots up. The reality? Headaches and sadness. You try this too. You rub. You slap. You pat. You whisper kind things to your scalp. Nothing changes. Except your dignity, which is now gently smoldering in a nearby ditch. But wait. A neighbor claims her cousin's friend's brother's landlord had success with rosemary infusion. You ask where to get rosemary. She points vaguely at the forest. You spend 3 days foraging. You find a shrub. It smells like hope. You boil it. You rinse. You repeat. You wait. Still nothing. But during your rosemary era, something interesting happens. Your scalp stops stinging. The redness fades. The itching dulls. You sleep through the night for the first time in weeks. Not because your hair is coming back, but because the madness is finally leaving your pores. You start wearing a hat, a linen cap sewn by your cousin, who owes you after that unfortunate goat incident. It's comfortable. It keeps the sun off your scalp. It makes you look less like a diseased turnip. You're learning to live with your baldness. Let's take a broader look now. Because this isn't just your tragedy. This is a continent-wide issue. Baldness affects the high and the low, the scribe and the soldier, even kings. In fact, a famous 12th century monk once wrote that baldness was the mark of a wise man, a spiritual man, a man whose hair had simply ascended early. You clutch that quote like a lifeline. Some church fathers even claimed baldness was divine. Hair was vanity. Baldness was humility, a gift, a spiritual cleanse. Never mind that all the paintings of saints show them with glorious curls. You believe what you need to survive. And so the weeks pass. You stop applying fermented badger. You stop rubbing eggs into your scalp under the moon. You stop letting old men bleed you while telling long-winded stories about their sister's neighbor's priest barber. You accept. Not happily. Not entirely. But enough to sleep through the night. Your scalp, now hardened like medieval bread crust, is at peace. It may never grow hair again, but it will no longer suffer. You've joined the proud tradition of the follically forsaken, a brotherhood of shiny-headed survivors who faced the worst and still managed to get up every morning, put on their wool sock hat, and go hoe some turnips in a field full of mystery holes and beetles the size of concern. And honestly, that's a win. Now, close your eyes. Let the scent of stale rosemary and roasted beetle root lull you into slumber. The stars are out. The crows have stopped screaming. Your scalp is cool. And, at least for tonight, you're safe from ointments. Sleep well. You wake up to the sound of a rooster screaming like it's seen the devil. Which, to be fair, it might have, considering what your scalp looks like after last night's herbal compress. It's stiff, pungent, slightly green. A peasant might mistake you for a moss-covered stone and try to plant leeks in your ears. You stretch. Everything creaks. You've been sleeping on straw that's only about 20% bugs now, so that's an improvement. The room is still humid from the boiled sheep bladder steam you inhaled before bed. A recipe allegedly blessed by Saint Rufinus the Bald, patron saint of tonsures, regrets, and confusing hairlines. You've tried nearly everything, but you haven't yet tried status-based healing. Yes. Welcome to the next phase of medieval baldness restoration, just being richer than other people. Because while peasants were rubbing goose grease into their heads and getting head-butted by superstition, the aristocrats had access to something much more powerful, alchemy. The science of making gold, immortality, and sometimes air, depending on who was funding it that month. You're invited to the estate of Lord Osmond, a man with 5 teeth, 12 capes, and an ego the size of Wessex. He's bald too, but claims it's intentional. You don't believe him. No one does. He leads you to a tower filled with scrolls, vials, and a man named Bernardius, who smells like burnt radishes and failed expectations. Bernardius is an alchemist, which, in medieval terms, means guy with a book, a candle, and too much time. He presents a remedy. He calls it capillum vitae, hair of life. Sounds promising. It's brewed from mercury, sulfur, vinegar, and the smoke of boiled parchment. You try not to gag. It looks like regret. It smells like a cursed scroll. And it hisses. You ask if it's safe. Bernardius laughs. Osmond laughs. The goat outside laughs. You dab a little on your scalp. It fizzles. Your vision goes slightly purple for a moment. You thank them politely, exit the tower, and spend the next 3 days vomiting into a hedge while your scalp throbs in Morse code. Eventually, the swelling goes down. But your hair still hasn't shown up to the party. At this point, you might be wondering, did anyone in the medieval world manage to grow their hair back? Yes. Maybe. Sort of. Probably not on purpose. You see, there were cases, rare ones, where someone would miraculously regain some hair. Usually after a long illness, or a spiritual pilgrimage, or after abandoning all treatment and simply waiting it out while eating slightly less moldy bread. Doctors took this to mean their treatments worked. Everyone else took it to mean God changed his mind. Either way, it was like catching a unicorn, beautiful, mysterious, and likely fictional. But that didn't stop people from trying harder. Let's explore the concept of sympathetic magic, the belief that if two things looked alike, they must be connected. That's how we get treatments like rubbing your scalp with a young lamb's kidney to imbue it with new life, wearing a wig made of freshly shorn sheep wool to inspire the scalp, applying a poultice made of hair mashed and boiled, because apparently that's how you convince your scalp to grow more, by giving it examples. None of these worked, but they were performed with great sincerity, and occasionally a small drum. Now, suppose you've lost hope. Suppose you've accepted the shine of your crown. Suppose you're ready to move on. Good news, you can now join a monastic order. The church loves baldness. Half the monks are already shaving their heads in a style known as the tonsure, a big OL bald patch on top surrounded by a fuzzy halo of humility. In fact, some monks believed baldness was divine providence, a shortcut to the tonsure. A literal head start on holiness. You could lean into this. Move into a monastery. Copy text by candlelight. Chant at dawn. Eat boiled turnips in silence while contemplating your smoothness as a gift from the Lord. But let's say monastic life isn't for you. You still enjoy fermented apples. You like loud conversation. You don't want to be celibate. So instead, you do what countless others before you have done, you fake it. Yes. Welcome to the medieval world of wigs. Now, these weren't your modern, lace-front, carefully ventilated masterpieces. No, these were more like furry hats with aspirations. Early wigs were made of human hair, collected, purchased, or borrowed without permission. Animal hair, usually goat, sometimes horse, occasionally squirrel. Plant fibers, for those with allergies or zero standards. They were itchy. They were heavy. They didn't breathe. Wearing one was like strapping a damp ferret to your head and pretending it was fashionable. But they worked. Sort of. People stopped staring at your scalp. Children stopped pointing. You could pass as someone whose hair simply looked odd, rather than someone who'd made terrible choices involving leeches and vinegar. Eventually, society caught on. Baldness wasn't cured. It was concealed. And from concealment comes fashion. Let's time travel briefly to the 16th century. Still medieval enough to smell like soup, but modern enough to wear puff sleeves. Baldness among the nobility becomes associated with wisdom and maturity. Some men even shave their heads intentionally just to appear more dignified. The early version of a power move. But it's not all roses and ritual head polishing. There are still men, desperate, sleepless men, who turn to fringe treatments. Like rubbing ox bile mixed with nettles on their skulls. Or chanting hair-growing hymns under eclipses. Or eating hair tonic pies, a truly unfortunate dish involving lard, ash, and, for some reason, apricots. Let's stop here to appreciate something. None of this worked. But it felt like it might. And sometimes, in the Middle Ages, that was enough. You didn't need results. You needed hope. Or at least a distraction from the lice. So, you ask yourself, is the problem really baldness? Or is it the medieval need to constantly fix what isn't killable? And then, while pondering that question under a dripping wooden roof, you discover something else, a local festival. A celebration of St. Baldwin, the patron of smooth heads, unburdened brows, and boiled radishes. You attend. You watch other bald men, proud, shiny, unconcerned, dance around a bonfire while wearing garlands on their heads. You join in. Someone hands you a drink made of fermented gooseberry and cabbage brine. It's awful. It's perfect. For the first time in months, you forget to worry about your follicles. You laugh. You cough up a little parsley. You realize you don't need hair to be alive, to be warm, to be human. You're bald. You've tried everything. You've failed gloriously. And somehow, that's liberating. Now, let's rest. It's late. The crickets are chirping. The fire has burned low. Your scalp no longer pulses with experimental rage. And there's a gentle breeze, the kind that would once have rustled your hair, but now simply cools your noble dome. Close your eyes. Dream of times when baldness was a journey, not a shame. Of monks, mystics, and medieval barbers wielding leeches like destiny. Sleep well, my hairless friend. You wake up in a palace this time. Progress. There's gold leaf on the ceiling, the kind that flakes off when you breathe too hard. The air smells of rose water and ambition. You're sleeping on something approximating a mattress, if by mattress we mean a bag of bird feathers that's been flattened by centuries of disappointment. The year is somewhere between 1480 and whatever Leonardo da Vinci is currently sketching. We've officially crossed into the late medieval period, which means baldness now exists in a deeply performative world. The Renaissance is peeking around the corner like an anxious intern. Art is exploding, science is confused but enthusiastic, and hair is more than just hair. It's status, seduction, and elaborate lies. Your scalp is still bald, by the way, completely. Reflective, even. But this time, you've got options, the kind that come with powdered faces, perfumed wigs, and a complete disregard for personal safety. Because now, baldness isn't just a personal tragedy. It's a political liability. You're in the court of King Charles VIII of France. A man known for starting wars, ending foreheads, and unfortunately, dying young. His court is obsessed with appearances. Everyone smells like lavender and quiet desperation. And full, luscious hair is the ultimate symbol of youth and virility. Which is awkward. Because your scalp looks like it's been polished for religious ceremonies. You begin the day by powdering your head. Literally. With flour. Some folks use crush pearls, but you're on a budget. You then don a wig, handmade, horsehair, and so heavy it tilts your head like a marionette on its last string. You try to look natural. You don't. But neither does anyone else. The fashion is theatrical, exaggerated, and chemically dangerous. Let's talk ingredients. Renaissance hair tonics are now infused with a new list of terrifying things. Lead acetate, a sweet-tasting poison, rubbed on scalps to stimulate growth. Side effects include nausea, death, and unrelenting sadness. Sulfur, the chemical equivalent of regret, used to create warmth in the scalp. Smells like eggs. Always eggs. Urine, still clinging to relevance after 1,000 years. Collected, fermented, and applied lovingly by servants who have learned not to ask questions. Some recipes also recommend the ashes of burnt peas, because nothing says healthy follicles like insect cremation. But you're not just dealing with dubious science. You're now facing expectation. Hairlines, by the late 1400s, are a battlefield, especially among noblewomen, who have begun to pluck their foreheads, yes, on purpose, to achieve the desired highbrow. The higher the forehead, the more aristocratic you appear. Which is great news for you. Your baldness is finally fashionable, but only on the front. You contemplate plucking the back of your head to match. Then realize that would just make your entire skull a forehead. A bold look. Not recommended. This is also the era of medical textbooks, or what passed for them. Some are quite beautiful. Illuminated, even. Written by people who had, perhaps, touched a human body once. They recommend treatments like massage the scalp with bear grease and cinnamon. Boil oak bark, rosemary, and pigeon droppings into a paste, then chant psalms while applying. Expose the scalp to sunlight during lunar conjunctions. Basically, treat your scalp like a pagan altar and hope for the best. You try it all. Again, the pigeon paste is gritty. The bear grease attracts dogs. You sing a psalm but forget the second verse and accidentally curse yourself into a nosebleed. Still bald. But now, the baldness carries a sense of drama. You've leaned into it. People assume you're either a scholar, a monk, or cursed by an ancient swamp hag. All of which get you invited to interesting parties. And let's not forget the rise of the Renaissance physician. A new breed of learned man who wears dark robes, smells of nutmeg, and uses words like humors with a straight face. You visit one. He measures your skull. He peers into your mouth. He sniffs a lock of your wig and says, "Ah, yes." Clearly a case of overdried phlegmatic imbalance. You nod. This sounds like a real thing. He prescribes a regimen of mild bloodletting, goat cheese compresses, and a tonic made of boiled wine and fig skins. You try it. The wine is fine. The fig skins are chewy. Your scalp remains unchanged. Eventually, you hear of a woman, Margarethe of Mainz, known for her miraculous hair-growing salves. She lives in a crooked cottage on the edge of the forest and only accepts payment in songbirds. You travel there. Give her a sparrow. She gives you a jar filled with something green, chunky, and offensively alive. You apply it nightly while reciting the Our Father backwards. After 2 weeks, your scalp itches so badly you consider joining the clergy again, just to shave it off in a socially acceptable way. Still, no hair. And now we must address something few dare to say aloud in Renaissance society. Perhaps baldness isn't a condition, but a character trait. You are now seen as distinguished, world-weary, mysteriously afflicted. There are rumors that you've been cursed for stealing relics. Others say you swore an oath of silence and hairlessness after surviving the siege of Rhodes. None of it is true. But the stories are better than the truth, that you've rubbed nearly every animal product into your head, and all you have to show for it is a slight rash and a deep knowledge of medieval dermatology. Now, you consider your options again. You could continue with the tinctures. Or try the Venetian method, wrapping the scalp in gold leaf during full moons. Or move to Florence, where wigs have become so ornate they require scaffolding. Or join a traveling troupe of actors who specialize in biblical dramas and interpretive moaning. But something stops you. A realization. A truth whispered only by those who've stared long into the abyss of historical grooming rituals. Maybe it's okay to be bald. You are now post-bald. Transcended. Your scalp is not a failure. It's a relic. A polished tribute to the ages. The monks were right. The alchemists were wrong. And that pigeon salve? Never again. You go to bed early. You no longer feel the need to pray for follicles. Instead, you whisper thanks to your poor, tormented skull. You survived the lead, the lard, and the leeches. That is enough. Sleep well. You've earned it. You wake up in Versailles. Yes, that Versailles, where chandeliers cry from the ceilings, where silk whispers across marble floors, and where your personal hairdresser has his own hairdresser. You are a man or woman of consequence now. No longer a simple peasant praying to the follicle gods with a turnip in one hand and a dead mouse in the other. You've ascended, bald, but opulent. The room smells like violet water, stale incense, and generational trauma. Everything is gold, except the parts that are ivory, mahogany, or encrusted with tiny mirrors so you can admire your reflection from 16 angles at once, including, tragically, the top of your bald head. But worry not, because here, in the glittering terror of 17th and 18th century Europe, everyone is faking it. You are not alone. In fact, the entire upper class is experiencing a shared delusion that powdered horsehair is better than actual hair. You're not just accepted. You're fashionable. Welcome to the golden age of wigs. Or as they like to call them, perruques. Or periwigs. Or, if you're the king of France, La Montagne de Vanille Capillaire. Not a real phrase, but it should be. Let's set the powdered stage. Louis XIV, the Sun King, is in charge. He's got legs like a ballerina, the confidence of a demigod, and a slowly receding hairline that, quite frankly, terrifies him. So he commissions a solution, a giant, curly, powdered masterpiece that sits atop his head like a decorative sheep with secrets. The people see it. They panic. They love it. Suddenly, everyone's doing it. Nobles, dukes, lawyers, priests, even children are wearing tiny wigs, presumably while cursing their fate and sneezing out talcum powder. You wake up, head shining like the morning dew on a grave, and your valet greets you with 4 wig options. The full-bottom peruque, heavy, extravagant, guaranteed to make your neck scream. The bob wig, shorter, practical, vaguely smug. The tie wig, pulled back, functional, favored by judges and executioners. Sometimes both. The half wig, for those who still had a bit of hair and wanted to feel morally superior. You choose the full-bottom monstrosity. It weighs 8 pounds. It smells like lavender and crushed ambition. You are now ready for breakfast. It's a typical morning. You sip coffee, a relatively new and suspicious import. You read the Gazette. You discuss war, fashion, and the alarming new trend of painting dogs to look like small men. Your scalp itches, but you say nothing. That's what powdered dignity is for. The wig, by the way, is secured with a combination of pins, ribbons, and prayer. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't bend. If it gets too close to a candle, it will ignite with a scream heard only by the damned. But it hides your baldness. It makes you look powerful, elegant, and slightly ridiculous. And you are not alone. This is an era where men wear more makeup than women. Where rouge, white powder, and beauty patches are mandatory. You paint a mole on your cheek in the shape of a star. It says, "I am rich, unreadable, and likely to duel over minor insults." You are beautiful. You are absurd. You are fashionably bald. But here's the thing, while wigs are covering up your scalp, people are still trying to fix baldness. Underneath all that powder and pomposity, desperation still festers. Let's explore some 17th century cures. One involves rubbing your head with red wine and thyme, followed by application of snail jelly. This isn't a euphemism. It's literal snail goo, collected painstakingly from their tiny, slimy bodies and smeared over your dome like you're seasoning a ham. Another method includes soaking your head in a mixture of honey, turpentine, and the extract of green walnuts. Then wrapping your head in a goose feather pillowcase and baking gently by the fire for 3 hours. It does not work. It never worked. But it made the servants laugh, and maybe that's enough. Doctors, now called physicians, which makes them sound slightly more trustworthy, suggest that baldness is caused by poor blood flow. Their solution? Leeches. Again. Always leeches. You lie on a velvet chaise while 2 bloated invertebrates suck your scalp and a man in a powdered wig says, "Yes, yes, I can see the new growth coming." He cannot. He's lying. But he has excellent shoes. And let's not forget the charlatans. They roam the countryside selling hair-growing tonics made of arsenic, moonlight, and lies. They have pamphlets with testimonials from satisfied customers who definitely do not exist. You buy 3 bottles. You drink 1. You hallucinate the entire siege of Vienna. Your hair does not return. Eventually, a small scandal erupts. A nobleman's wig is eaten by moths during dinner. The room gasps. He flees to Italy in shame. New laws are proposed to regulate wig hygiene, including mandatory powder days, during which wigs are aired, brushed, and coated in insect-repellent powder made of lavender, flour, and crush bones. It doesn't help. Everyone still has lice. But no one dares stop. Because wigs have become social currency. The bigger the wig, the more respect. The more curls, the more clout. There are entire books published on wig etiquette. There are duels fought over wig theft. You attend a party. A woman's wig is so tall it scrapes the ceiling. A man's wig is shaped like a ship. Someone's hairpiece contains a working music box. Someone else's catches fire. No one panics. They simply applaud the drama. It is glorious. It is terrible. It is unsustainable. And then, revolution. Across the channel, in England, wigs are starting to shrink. People are getting annoyed. The Enlightenment is looming like a buzzkill in glasses. In France, whispers grow louder. Maybe we shouldn't spend a month's wages on scented hair flour. Maybe we shouldn't be starving while nobles style their wigs with marmalade and swan feathers. The revolution doesn't just kill kings. It kills wigs. Suddenly, powdered hair becomes a symbol of aristocracy, and therefore of oppression. Wigs are burned. Hair is cropped short. Bald heads re-emerge, not out of vanity, but as political statements. You stare at your own reflection in the aftermath. For once, you look normal, honest, revolutionary. Your scalp is finally free of its powdered prison. But you miss it. Just a little. The ridiculousness. The rituals. The way people bowed slightly when your curls bounced in the candlelight. You consider keeping one wig. Just for fun. Just for costume parties or haunting your old palace with flair. And thus, baldness becomes a new kind of truth, no longer hidden, no longer feared. Just another state of being. The wig didn't save you. The snail jelly certainly didn't. But somewhere between fashion and farce, you learned to wear your baldness like a crown. Now rest, dear powdered noble. The fire is low. The powdered moths have settled. Your scalp is cool against the linen. You've survived monarchy, medicine, and metaphorical headfires. That's enough for 1 century. Sleep softly and dream of better wigs. You wake up to the sound of gears grinding and a street vendor yelling about boiled pig feet. It's the 19th century. The Industrial Revolution is in full, coal-stained swing, and hair is complicated. The world is transforming. Railways, telegraphs, factories, poverty, cholera, and through it all, a quiet, persistent dread that your hair is thinning. The mirror confirms it. Your hairline has taken a step back, much like Queen Victoria at a séance. There's a cold draft where confidence used to be. You sigh, adjust your stiff collar, and begin the day. Because while humanity has figured out steam engines, gas lamps, and photography, it still hasn't cracked the riddle of a full head of hair. But it's trying. Oh boy, is it trying. You are living in the golden age of quackery. When science is young, regulation is a myth, and every problem can be solved with alcohol, opium, or violent massage. And baldness? It's officially a cash cow. You step out into a London street thick with smoke, horse manure, and thinly veiled con artistry. Immediately, you're handed a pamphlet by a man with astonishing sideburns and suspicious enthusiasm. It promises Dr. Allerton's Miracle Scalp Invigorator, 100% natural. Grows hair in just 6 applications. Cures dandruff, melancholy, and female troubles. You are intrigued. Who is Dr. Allerton? No one knows. Possibly a goat in a waistcoat. But his miracle tonic is available in every corner shop, usually next to the arsenic wafers and morphine candies. So you buy a bottle. It smells like turpentine and bad ideas. You apply it religiously every night while listening to your neighbor shout about phrenology. After a week, your scalp is tingling. After 2 weeks, it's burning. After 3 weeks, it peels like a Victorian sunburn. Still bald. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, America is fully embracing capitalism with its favorite new invention, patent medicine. You're in a Kansas apothecary now. The shelves are lined with dubious elixirs in ornate glass bottles labeled with names like Professor Wiggins' Electromagnetic Balm for Baldness. Mother Hapgood's Hair Growing Wonder Oil, now with Bear Gall. The revitalizing tonic of Dr. Aloysius Crow, trusted by presidents, loved by widows. Every one of these claims to restore hair, virility, and sometimes morality. They cost a few pennies and your dignity. You buy 3. And now you have options. Do you want to rub a tincture containing alcohol, pepper, and motor oil into your scalp twice a day? Strap on a galvanic helmet that zaps your head with a light but persistent electrical current? Attend a demonstration by a man in a traveling tent who says hair loss is caused by demons trapped in the follicles? The answer is yes. You try all of them. The galvanic helmet makes your teeth tingle. The pepper tonic makes you cry. The demon man offers you a hairbrush made from sanctified raccoon bone. You use it once, and it gives you lice. But what about medicine? Real, clinical, Victorian medicine? You visit a physician with a diploma printed on what looks like butcher paper. He peers at your scalp through a monocle and says, "Ah, a clear case of nervous exhaustion." He prescribes cold baths, strenuous walks, abstinence from everything, cod liver oil. This doesn't help your hair, but it makes you an incredibly boring dinner guest. So you try the barber's cure, a real trend in the 1800s. You walk into a barbershop where a man in an apron aggressively brushes your scalp with stiff boar bristles for 30 minutes while explaining how your bile is likely unbalanced. Then he rubs in an invigorating cream made of animal fat and eucalyptus. He means well. He means very well. But the only thing being invigorated is your rage. Let's pause here to admire some of the more spectacular real-life inventions from this era. Historical fact, not satire. The thermocap, a heated metal cap worn over the scalp to stimulate blood flow, often resulted in third-degree burns and spontaneous crying. The vacuum helmet, exactly what it sounds like, a suction device worn like a helmet designed to pull blood into your scalp. Side effect, permanent confusion. The hair restorer comb, a comb made of zinc and copper that supposedly generated electricity. In reality, pulled out whatever hair you did have left. You try them all, because you are nothing if not committed. But here's the real twist. Hair wasn't just about vanity anymore. It was about identity. You see, this is the 19th century. Darwin is writing. Marx is arguing. The mustache is becoming a personality, and the fear of baldness is being pathologized. In Victorian society, a full head of hair is linked to masculinity, intelligence, even morality. Some newspapers publish articles warning that bald men are more likely to be criminals. Others say baldness is a symptom of overthinking, or worse, masturbation. Yes, seriously. This theory plagued humanity for decades. You, being both thoughtful and occasionally naughty, are therefore doomed. But it's not all despair. Because as wigs fall out of fashion, both literally and culturally, some brave souls begin to own their baldness. You meet one such man. He's bald as a cannonball and prouder than a rooster in silk slippers. He's got a monocle, a walking cane, and a wife who writes romance novels. He tells you, baldness, my dear chap, is merely the scalp expressing itself. Let it speak. You want to believe him. You try to believe him. But then you pass a window display featuring the latest scalp vacuum roller, and you falter. You buy it. Obviously. Now, let's not forget the rise of hair transplants, or at least the early whispers of them. By the very end of the 19th century, a few German doctors begin experimenting with skin grafts and follicle relocation. The results are mixed. Most patients end up with painful infections and a patchy head that looks like a moth-eaten rug. But science is on the move. Hope, like hair, begins to sprout in weird, unpredictable places. And yet, the great irony of the 1800s is this. No one actually solved baldness. Despite the tonics, the machines, the terrifying headgear, and the shouted promises of roadside barkers, your scalp remains shiny, defiant, timeless. And maybe that's not a failure. Maybe it's a kind of legacy. Because in a century obsessed with progress, trains, telegraphs, revolutions, you are a walking reminder that nature still has the final word. Your bald head shines under the gaslight like a truth too smooth to ignore. So you go home. You take off your galvanic helmet. You throw away the raccoon brush. You sit by the fire, scalp tingling, and reflect. You have not been cured. But you have been witness to a glorious parade of human creativity, desperation, and deeply questionable hygiene. That counts for something. Sleep now. Let the noise of the industrial world fade. No one selling you snake oil here. Just gentle absurdity and historical regret. You survived another century of baldness and lived to not tell the tale. You wake up in the 20th century. There's jazz in the air. The scent of cigarette smoke, gasoline, and melted optimism wafts through the streets. Everyone's wearing fedoras, except for you, because you've got hope in your heart and a new bottle of follicure in your hand. This is the century of hope in a bottle, or, more accurately, every bottle. Snake oil has gone to finishing school. It's gotten a haircut, a radio deal, and a marketing campaign with a jingle that haunts your dreams. Let's set the scene. It's 1912. You walk into a pharmacy that smells like floor wax and linoleum. There, under buzzing electric lights, is a gleaming shelf of baldness cures with names like Herbicide, the Dandruff Slayer, Wild Root Cream Oil, Vitali's, keeps your hair neat all day, Fitch's Ideal Hair Tonic, and the Bold Grease X, which, alarmingly, has no description, just a picture of a smiling man with suspiciously dense hair. You buy them all, because this century sounds confident. Gone are the rusted galvanic helmets and boiling goose grease. Now we have science-wise sounding names, labels printed in elegant fonts, and a man on the radio swearing it worked for me, while saxophones play seductively in the background. The thing is, it still doesn't work. But it fails with style now. In the 1920s, looking good is not a suggestion. It's survival. It's how you get hired, how you get married, how you are judged, gently and silently, by society and the mirror. And baldness? Still not fashionable. Which brings us to the rise of the hat. Oh yes, the silent savior of generations. Fedoras, trilbies, boaters, pork pies. All worn with the subtle urgency of someone hiding a nuclear accident beneath them. Bald? Just slap on a brim and say, it's a look. But eventually, you must remove the hat. At the dinner table, in church, in court, on dates. And that's when the anxiety returns. Because the world may be modern now, but your scalp is still stuck in the past. So what do? You try everything. Let's take a nostalgic stroll through some actual, historically accurate attempts to regrow hair in the 20th century. Radiation therapy. Yes. In the early 1900s, some clinics experimented with low-dose X-ray radiation to stimulate follicles. Side effects included hair loss, ironically, and sometimes, oh yes, cancer. Shampoo made from placenta. In the 1930s, ads began to appear claiming the nutrients in cow placenta could restore hair. Because nothing says scientific breakthrough like rubbing reproductive goo on your skull. Scalp exercise. An actual method marketed to balding men, involving intense frowning, eyebrow lifting, and forehead wrinkling to increase circulation. You do this in the mirror every morning. You look like a concerned cartoon. Your hair remains unmoved. Meanwhile, advertising agencies are thriving. By the 1940s and 50s, hair loss is being framed not just as a cosmetic issue, but a moral failing. Are you balding? Then you might also be lazy, insecure, unworthy of promotions, or, horror of horrors, less masculine. Enter the confidence narrative. One radio ad for a hair tonic says, regain your hair and regain control. No one respects a man who's letting himself go. You want to believe it. You need to believe it. But deep down, you know, your follicles don't care about your job interview. And yet, the world doubles down. Television enters the room like a smug guest with a full head of hair. Now, it's not just magazines and radios selling you hope, it's moving pictures. Shiny, Technicolor ads showing men in suits with glorious pompadours and women who melt at their touch. The message is clear, hair equals power. Baldness equals problem. You respond like a man under siege. You buy everything again. And now, the products start getting weirder. Spray-on hair. Yes, a real thing. Pressurized cans of pigmented fibers that create the illusion of hair until it rains. Toupees. Or cranial wigs for the proud and delusional. You try one on. It feels like wearing a squirrel. A nervous squirrel. The hair weaving technique. A method involving sewing artificial hair onto the existing hair. Painful. Expensive. Looks like a failed puppet show. But wait, the late 20th century is coming. And so is science. Like real science. Maybe. Probably. Hopefully. In the 1970s and 80s, doctors finally start studying baldness like it's an actual medical issue instead of a Greek tragedy. They identify androgenetic alopecia, a genetic condition caused by the hormone DHT. Finally, a villain with a name. You picture DHT as a tiny gremlin holding a pair of scissors and a mirror full of shame. And the best part? They start inventing things that kind of work. Enter minoxidil. Originally developed as a blood pressure medication, it was discovered, by accident, of course, to stimulate hair growth as a side effect. Bald men around the world collectively blinked and said, "Rub what now?" It's marketed as Rogaine, and it becomes a quiet revolution. You apply it religiously. It smells faintly chemical. It makes your scalp itch. You think you see a few sprouts. Or are they just optimistic dreams clinging to your forehead? Next comes finasteride, better known as Propecia, a pill that blocks DHT. Side effects? Everything. But if it means a chance at follicles, you're in. Meanwhile, marketing takes a strange turn. Baldness is still mocked in sitcoms and cartoons, but a few brave, shiny-headed warriors start pushing back. Enter the Bruce Willises, the Patrick Stewarts, the Yul Brynnes, men who said, "Yes, I'm bald. And also better than you." For the first time, baldness starts to look cool, but only if you're confident, ripped, and able to jump through a window with 2 machine guns and a cigarette. You are not that guy, but you start to believe that maybe you don't have to fight this forever. Then, in the 90s, comes the rise of hair transplant surgery 2.0, no longer horrifying, no longer random scalp flaps. Now it's FUT and later FUE, acronyms so precise they sound like secret government operations. Which, in a way, they are. Hair follicles are extracted from the back of your head and reinserted into the barren frontlands. It's costly. It's slow. It's a surgical art. But it works, sometimes. You think about it. Long and hard. But eventually, you stop. Because at some point during this century, maybe after the 47th ad or the 13th jar of placenta shampoo, you realize something. Your bald head is still yours. Still warm. Still thinking. Still here. And maybe the problem wasn't your hair. Maybe it was the century screaming that you were incomplete. You walk outside into the late 20th century breeze. No hat. No tonic. No shame. Just the sun and your reflection in a shop window. Still smooth. Still standing. Still you. Sleep now. Let the infomercials fade. Let the jingles dissolve. You've endured advertising, pressure, and pharmaceutical potions. You're not broken. You're just bald. And in this strange, noisy world, that's enough. You wake up in 2024. You open your eyes to the soft glow of your phone screen. Notifications. Emails. A targeted ad for the last hair growth serum you'll ever need by someone named at Scalp God 69. Welcome to the age of information overload, biohacking, and endless hope, now available in convenient monthly subscriptions. You drag yourself to the bathroom. Stare into the mirror. The spot is still there, your ancient adversary, your solar panel of wisdom. But instead of despair, you feel resignation. Maybe a little amusement. Because now, in this century, being bald is both a problem and a brand. Let's begin with the big three, the old, reliable trio of the follicular faith. Minoxidil, finasteride, transplants. They're still here, just better marketed. Minoxidil comes in foams, serums, even mint-scented organic options. You can now spray your scalp with something that smells like a Jolly Rancher and pretend it's medicine. Finasteride? Still effective. Still has side effects. Still requires a prescription, unless you live in a country where regulations are considered polite suggestions. Hair transplants? Oh, darling, we're past plugs now. We're into microscopic follicle grafting performed by robotic arms, controlled by specialists who look like they moonlight as DJs. The results? Often impressive. The price tag? Somewhere between ouch and take my house. The pain? Well, imagine thousands of bee stings with medical billing. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This century is different. Because in the 21st century, baldness is no longer just a condition. It's content. You open TikTok. A 22-year-old trichologist with perfectly wavy hair and suspiciously white teeth explains why you're still balding and how I fixed it. He then proceeds to sell you a $49 serum made from fermented alpaca spit, now available through his affiliate link. You scroll. Another influencer stands in front of a ring light, waving a red light laser helmet that resembles a prop from Star Trek. "This changed my life," he says, smiling like a man who's been paid handsomely to believe that. FDA cleared. Doctor approved. Vibes based. You blink. The helmet costs $900 and comes with a monthly app subscription to track your follicular mood data. You don't know what that means, but it sounds stupid enough to be real. Welcome to the age of pseudoscientific hope. This is the century where branding beats biology, where a serum's packaging matters more than its ingredients, where every product name sounds like a CrossFit gym: Revivex, Follica, Nutrigrow, Regina Root, Power Strands, Scalp Forge Plus. Let's take a tour of what modern humans are rubbing on their heads. Stem cell-infused serums, marketed as miracles in a bottle. What stem cells? From where? Nobody knows. You apply it nightly. It smells like citrus and denial. CBD scalp drops. Because if your scalp can't grow hair, at least it can chill out. Microneedling, a process where you roll tiny needles over your scalp to wake up your follicles. It's like acupuncture if acupuncture hated you. Platelet-rich plasma injections. That's right, they now spin your blood in a machine and inject your plasma into your scalp. It costs $1,000 a session. It's somehow both cutting-edge and medieval. And then, of course, there's nutrition culture. You've been told your baldness might be due to stress, sleep, gluten, or your gut microbiome's emotional distress. So you buy collagen powder. You eat fermented goat yogurt. You stop shampooing. You start oiling. You stop oiling. You become a person who says things like, "My hair cycle is intelligent phase." You are not okay. But here's the fun twist: some of it kinda works. There's real science behind low-level laser therapy, microneedling, and nutritional support, just enough to keep hope alive. But only if you do it consistently, every day, for months, maybe years, with patience, and the budget of a small kingdom. You try. You fail. You try again. You fall asleep mid-serum. And slowly, beneath all the desperation, you notice a shift, not in your follicles, but in culture. Because baldness is no longer just a punchline. It's a choice, a look, a brand identity. You see proud bald heads on Instagram, men, women, non-binary folks, all glowing under ring lights, saying things like, "I ditched the wigs and found myself," or "My scalp, my story." You begin to notice something radical. Baldness, in the 21st century, might finally be fine. Not heroic, not tragic, not cured, just fine. And so, as you tuck yourself in under your Egyptian cotton sheets, your face bathed in the blue light of a phone showing top 10 scalp massagers on Amazon, you realize you've been through everything. You've endured leeches, boiled lizard fat, electromagnetic wigs, spray-on hair, placenta-based shampoo, snake oil dressed in Helvetica. And now, here you are, with a shiny dome, a peaceful mind, and a growing suspicion that maybe, just maybe, you don't need a full head of hair to be whole. You turn off the screen. Close your eyes. You are not broken. You are not unfinished. You are not a project. You are smooth. You are streamlined. You are sleep-ready. The ads can wait. The influencers can wait. The world can wait. Because for now, you are resting. You wake up somewhere timeless. No phone. No screen. No YouTube thumbnails promising 5 hair hacks that actually work. Just the sound of wind through trees. The scent of something earthy and old. You are barefoot. The sky is clear. You are, as always, bald. But this time, it doesn't feel like a failure. It feels like a beginning. You are walking through history's most peaceful museum, a gallery of shaved heads, each from a different corner of humanity's long, strange story. Over here, we have a Buddhist monk. He's sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, scalp gleaming in the sun. He shaves his head not because he's balding, but because he chooses detachment. From vanity, from ego, from desire. To the monk, baldness is liberation. Hair is distraction. Noise. A veil between the self and the sacred. By shaving it, he simplifies his identity. He becomes anonymous. Equal. pure. You kneel beside him for a moment. It's quiet here. Meditative. No minoxidil in sight. Just breath. And then you wander on, across centuries. Now you stand beside an ancient Egyptian priest. He's anointed in oils, his scalp glistening under the torchlight of a temple. He, too, shaves by choice. In ancient Egypt, a shaved head was a symbol of ritual cleanliness, of divine service. Hair was considered unclean, a nuisance, a barrier between you and the gods. For these priests, baldness wasn't shameful. It was sacred. Across the aisle, a very different figure waits, an ancient warrior from the Eurasian steppes. He has a crescent-shaped tattoo on his scalp, bare and weathered from the sun. His head is shaved for battle, no hair to grab, no locks to slow him down. In war, baldness was practical, strategic, intimidating. If you saw him charging across the field, you weren't admiring his hairline, you were reconsidering your life choices. To him, baldness is power. You keep moving. The air grows still. And there, standing tall in the shadows, is a Christian monk from the Middle Ages. He wears the infamous tonsure, a bowl-shaped ring of hair surrounding a bald scalp. It looks, let's be honest, absolutely ridiculous. But it's not about style. It's about humility. The tonsure was meant to mock vanity, to remind the monk and everyone around him that he had no place for pride. To him, baldness is penance, a symbol of submission. You pause again. Reflect. Let the quiet in. Because now, things begin to blur. You see a slave, head shaved in punishment. A Holocaust victim, stripped of hair in dehumanization. A woman accused of adultery, her head shaved in public shame. A child in chemotherapy, bald by necessity, courage, or brutal fate. In these moments, baldness becomes pain. Not choice. Not pride. But a mark. A theft. A way for others to control or shame or erase. You stand quietly in the middle of these echoes. Because hair, or the lack of it, has always been more than follicles. It's identity. It's status. It's rebellion. And sometimes, it's survival. But let's not end there. Because next, you see something else. A monk. A warrior. A survivor. A prophet. And then, you. You, in the mirror. In the present. Or maybe in the future. And you're not ashamed. Not hiding. Not hoping. Just existing. Because in this final moment, it becomes clear baldness has never just been about hair. It's been a mirror. A canvas. A code written in your DNA, in your culture, in your time. Sometimes you fought it. Sometimes you laughed at it. Sometimes you tried to glue a wig to it and pretend. And sometimes you just accepted it. Because baldness is many things. It is the result of your ancestors' hormone settings. A biological shrug. A social signal. A punchline. A trend. A betrayal. A liberation. A style. A sentence. A freedom. It's all of those. But most of all, it's yours. You didn't choose it. But you do get to decide how to live with it. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Not how to fight baldness. Not how to fix it. Not even how to pretend you never cared. But how to hold it lightly. How to smile at your reflection, even when the top of your head reflects back. How to say, yes, I'm bald. And I'm still magnificent. You lie back. Close your eyes. Somewhere, deep in your subconscious, a 14th century apothecary is still whispering about goat urine and powdered emeralds. But you've made peace with him. Because now, you know the truth. You are not your hair. You are not your scalp. You are not your regrets or your products or your hats. You are you. Still standing. Still smooth. Still shiny. Still here. Sleep, now. Let the world go quiet. Let the centuries pass. Let the oils dry, the helmets cool, the jellies harden in their jars. You've done enough. You've been through 10,000 years of baldness. And now, you rest.